JavaScript best practices. Let's look at some of the best practices of working with the JavaScript programming language. Avoid global variables. So in your code or in your project, try as much as possible to avoid global variables. Avoid new keywords as well. Avoid double equals to and avoid evaluation method. Now, also minimize the use of global variables. If you cannot avoid it in total, you cannot avoid it in entirety, then minimize the use of global variables. This is very, very important. And when we are talking about global variable, it includes all data types, objects, and functions. Global variables and functions can be overwritten by other scripts. So if you have let's say a modest or a bit of complex code base, your global variables and functions can easily be overwritten by other scripts. And it is the reason why it is recommended to avoid global variables. And if at all, if you have to use them, minimize their use to the barest minimum in order not to be set up for surprises in the output or the result of your code. Use local variables instead and learn how to use closures. So use local variable instead of global variable and then learn how to use closures in order to contain the accessibility of each script in your code block or the accessibility of each variable in your code block. Always declare local variables. All variables used in functions should be declared as local variable. Local variable must be declared with the var, the let, or the const keyword. Otherwise, they will become global variables. So what does that mean? Let me show us an example. Now, look at this. X equals to 5, for example. Let me try to log this out. Console.log x. Now you can see the output as 5. Now, I want to come down here and say make a function and call it maybe sum or anything. I'm not going to pass anything inside it. And I say something like maybe let result equals to let result equals to x. Return results. Now, you can see that even from my function, I am still able to access this x that is declared outside of the function. But let's take a look at something. If I add a keyword to this, like let's see what happens. This is still returning 5. Now, if I use const, it is still also returning 5. Now, if I have this without any initialization, if I have something like this, now you can see that JavaScript is already telling me an error. But if I have something like this, let x, and I say x equals to 10. Now, what am I getting? Sorry, I missed something. X is equals to 10. You can see that here I'm able to reassign value to this. But what if I put this up? Can see this can't access lexical declaration x before initialization. If I assign a value before I declare the variable, then JavaScript will give me a reference error, which is the correct behavior that is expected. And this is the benefit of declaring local variables with either the var, the let, and const keyword. Otherwise, they will become a global variable. So if you don't declare them as a local variable, then they become accessible anywhere in your code. You can see this value. So outside of this, I can still even access it because it will become globally accessible. And the recommended keyword for variable declaration is let and const. Always avoid var because it can produce an unexpected or inconsistent result in your code or project. So let's move on and look at declaration on top for JavaScript. It's a good coding practice to put all declaration at the top of each script or function. This will give cleaner code, provide a single place to look for local variable, make it easier to avoid unwanted implied global variable, reduce the possibility of unwanted redeclaration. So let's look at an example of how declaration of the top looks like in JavaScript. So let's make a variable. I'll call it first name, add another one as last name, another one as price, discount, full price. Now, you can see that here I have declared my variable at the top. Now, if I want to use this later, use later. Now, I can now say first name equals to what? To John. Last name equals to Joe. Price equals to 1919 and discount equals to 0.2. Full price equals price minus discount. So you can see all of this. So it's very much more cleaner and easier to do what? To use my variable because I have declared them at the top first. So I'm just giving them value here. So this will not set me up for surprise, and then it will reduce the possibility of unwanted declaration. For example, if I try to declare price now, let price, you can see it's already giving me an error. And if you look at the error, can only declare block scope variable price. So this will lead to less surprises, unlike if those variables are available globally. The same thing also goes for loop. When you are working with loop, so you have something like this for let I equals to blah 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 blah. You can see it. So once your variable is declared with the right keyword, then it's reduce or limit the possibility of global accessibility in your code. So this is important to note when working with variables in your code. Also, initialize variable. It's a good coding practice to initialize variable when you declare them. This will give inner code. It will provide a single place to initialize variable, and it will also avoid undefined variable. Initializing variable provide an idea of the intended use and intended data type. So when you initialize a variable, it will provide an idea of unintended use. So if I say let price equals to 100, this will provide a use. Whether I want to use the price to calculate tax or I want to use to calculate discount. So it's also provide the idea for an intended use. So when you have a variable, always declare and initiate them at the beginning.